It doesn't make anyone love their natural hair anymore when you tell them that they must hate themselves if they don't like it and if they don't wear it. It really does nothing to make them more comfortable with the natural state of their hair, because all it's doing is adding to shame. Like, it's another layer of shame that you are trying to get someone to confront in a way, but it's like you guys are saying it as a put down.
Is the natural hair community really toxic, or do you just hate your hair? The natural hair community fell on its sword. Many blogs stopped posting, many channels blacked subscribers and lost viewers, and old attitudes about the upkeep of natural hair surfaced. The community's failure to accurately acknowledge and address texturism is what led to its downfall. The same hierarchy it sought to dismantle grew ever more powerful with the pedestalization of curls. The undermining and disregard of coils was the predictable result. Loving and embracing your texture went out the window, while achieving the appearance of coils burst through the gate. Curl-defining products were falling out of shelves, and creators with 3-type hair became the main influences. Oh, and there was that whole obsession with edges. Gel entered the chat, and styles suddenly didn't have much of an effect without it. It being used on braiding styles was the tipping point for me, I'm not gonna lie. The only views-worthy path type-4 creators could take was filled with silk presses and the scalp burning, cancer-causing concoctions that kept one's hair straight and as far away from its natural texture as possible. Suddenly, encouraging young girls to step back into the very boxes the community was built to take them out of became the norm. Framing the natural hair community as a toxic space that judged many for not showcasing and embracing their type 4 hair as often as possible, framing it as a space that sought to police how black women and girls wore their hair instead of one that respected their right to choose, became the main conversation. So, well, what happened? Why is loving coily hair such a task? History, of course. So devaluing each and every stereotypical Africanoid feature was an important step in getting Africans to see themselves as lessers compared to their oppressors. Africans adored their coils, and a lot of their culture reflected it. Coils were like a blank canvas, and braiders and stylists were the genius minds behind the art expressed through them. In their mission to erase and bury any and everything Africans took pride in, colonialists drew their own picture, and in it, kinky hair was framed as a sign of inhumanity, informal, unclean, and solely masculine. Over the years, laws that threatened the upward mobility of any African who chose to bask in their beauty, as opposed to praising and emulating another, were quickly put in place. Calls were said to be distracting. You cannot tend to them and focus on your studies, so many did away with them. Myths that downplayed their beauty arose. They cannot grow, and so why bother? This history is often recalled by those who seek to explain their reason for covering or loosening their hair. It is valid, yes, but I fear it is currently being used as a way to dismiss constructive criticism.
We're not going to sit here and pretend like I don't get treated differently by society when I leave the house with bohemian knotless braids versus mini twists versus a headscarf. And then more importantly, we're not going to then try and sit here and gaslight me into thinking that the way that I am treated by society when I leave the confines of my house isn't important. We're not going to sit here and act like we haven't lived in a society in which has taught Black women to hate the hair that grows out of their head. They don't hate it for no reason. They're not just being annoying about it. There's a reason for it. There is a reason for it. And every time we have this conversation around natural hair, you guys are so willfully obtuse and mean. You guys are just mean. And then you wonder why no one wants to listen to you. And then you wonder why no one wants to be a part of your little community. It's not a community. You guys are just haters. You guys are just haters and borderline bullies. That is what you are. I am the biggest proponent for Black women learning to love their natural hair. I have a baby sister, 3 years old. And a part of the reason why I learned to love my natural hair is so that she doesn't have to grow up with the same kind of issues that I had to grow up with her natural hair. But I do that not by ignoring the reason why I feel this way, but by acknowledging it and learning to overcome it. No, what y'all expect people to do is y'all expect people to pretend like the issue doesn't exist. What y'all expect people to do is y'all expect people to just be like, oh, well, the world doesn't like your hair, so what? That doesn't mean anything. You need to stop because you're being willfully obtuse. Create an actual community around learning our hair. Create an actual community of honesty, transparency, openness, and empathy instead of going around basically yelling at every black woman who doesn't want to wear their natural hair and then pretending like there's y'all need to stop.
Yes, people will look at you differently, but the need to center the emotions of hateful detractors is not as immense. And the main issue for me personally, and from what I have heard for many advocates of natural hair representation, is the blatant misinformation many spread without any regard to the harm it causes in the long run. Yes, there's history, but we unfortunately have to help carve out a better future. I think telling women who prefer wigs that they hate their hair is crass and uncalled for, but acting like there isn't a billion-dollar industry that encourages that preference is also a farce.
You know, if I was a scammer, the one person or the one group of people that I would focus on scamming would be the natural hair community. I think I would get them quick. The natural hair community, just catch a girly or catch someone with natural hair who is desperate for length, for long hair, and you've got a case on your hands. You have easily got a customer on your hand. You've got a client on your hands, okay?
Choice liberation and choice feminist talking points are frequently thrown in to dumb down the conversation. The beauty industry has always been predatory. We call this out even within fat acceptance. Diet culture is something we can note as a deliberate attack on women living in larger bodies. Being on a diet in and of itself is not the problem. I believe any and everyone has the right to decide what they can and cannot consume. I am talking about the deliberate dehumanization of bigger people in the media. I'm noting the many verbal attacks and the discrimination bigger people face in healthcare. Spreading misinformation about which diets work and which diets do not in an effort to push products is very harmful. Even if the product is yourself as an influencer or as a brand, the equivalent of this is telling coily head women that extensions are protective styles and using its ties to history as a way to quiet down any pushback. Plaiting hair and braiding hair are two different things, but have those who champion extensions as the end-all be-all to protecting afros from God knows what tell it. They are one and the same and are a way to promote hair growth. This has kept the many companies that sell extensions in business for years. There is nothing wrong with getting braids, but there is something wrong with being dishonest about their function. It is having your hair in cornrows that grows them, and the extensions aren't necessary for that to happen. But for years, people have been allowed to make up myth after myth about coily hair needing to be shielded consistently in order to grow and remain healthy. This gave extensions more historical relevance than even afros themselves. Most mainstream conversations touched on why we should wear extensions whenever and wherever we choose, which is fair, which is justified, but it allowed many to speak of our hair like it's alien compared to other textures. Claims about Cleopatra being black and inventing wigs flew around, and whoever questioned this was labeled anti-black. Argument was, hey, we've loved looser textured hair since the dawn of time. We've been covering our hoils since forever. It's our history. Like, what? And none of the people who were pushing this rhetoric gave one, let alone two shits how discouraging this was. It isn't just racists who hate your hair. Now your ancestors agreed. They loved it better covered up just as well. In an effort to protect those targeted with fat phobia, we can acknowledge that oftentimes it is through debasing them and limiting their access that we are able to continuously use the need to promote healthy bodies to excuse pedestalizing skinny ones and being as harsh and cruel to those who don't fit that standard as possible. Texturism is not given the same respect as fat phobia. Skinny women are not at all allowed to insinuate any any bullying they receive equates to the systematic abuse bigger women experience. With texturism, there are people who insinuate being judged for wearing your hair as it grows out of your heads and wearing an extension are judged equally, despite one being systematically policed and the other being socially policed. Yes, we should wear whatever we want, but let's not pretend critiquing choice feminism is exclusive to Black women. What most people always say, what I always find most people saying in most comment sections, in comment sections is, why do people only have these conversations with Black women? People do not only have these conversations with Black women. You are just more aware of it with Black women. White women have pages where they talk about hair all the time, where they talk about curls, where they talk about the use of heat, the overuse of heat. A lot of people of other races talk about a lot of things. It not being in a natural hair space does not mean that they don't talk about it.
It is true that the patriarchy makes impossible beauty standards for women. However, you are helping them. I see this specifically with women online, but there is no shortage of women shaming other women into fitting the beauty standards. There's a young woman with an unusual amount of wrinkles that has other young women in her comments telling her she needs to wear sunscreen, get Botox, buy this product. Something I personally experienced was posting my natural hair without any product in it. All of the comments were women criticizing my hair. It was not men making those comments. Women are promoting plastic surgery. Here's the thing, if you want to stop feeling like you're held to impossible beauty standards, then you need to stop holding other women to these beauty standards.
I am not going to start a natural hair page as a Black woman and talk about white people or Asian people or whoever else. No, but they talk about themselves too and with each other. And the space may not be as big, it may not be as large as ours when it comes to this, because they do not need to break down systematic barriers, because there is not a deep history there, because there is not a need to dismantle harmful ideas. There's the answer.
I think natural hair just accentuates your individual style, because if you, being in the natural hair community, you can have someone who has the same texture, the same density, and the same haircut as you. But because of your bone structure, because of your makeup, because of what you're wearing, you're gonna pop out a little different than who your clone or twin might be. So I think just how natural hair makes you be bold.